NewsNation's Chris Cuomo held a town hall that included Stephen A. Smith, Bill O'Reilly, and President Donald Trump.
Trump phoned in and discussed his first 100 days. The president revealed what he and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had discussed in Rome.
Yeah. What were you and Zelensky talking about when you were nose to nose in the Vatican?
I was telling him that it's a very good thing if we can produce a deal that you sign it, because Russia is much bigger and much stronger. Russia is just chugging forward. It's a big, strong country. By the way, not nearly as strong as the United States, because I rebuilt our military in my first term.
Trump also spoke on tariffs and trade deals. O'Reilly asked Trump about whether his tariff policy would help Democrats in the midterms.
Remember, if it doesn't stabilize this time next year, Democrats may win the midterms. So there is risk here, big risk.
That's true. It is true. And I just think that I'll be able to convince people how good this is. We were ripped off by China, but we were ripped off by everybody, but really by China. They were the king of ripping off the United States. Now they're not doing any business here because I don't want them to do business. So I set a high tariff. I don't want them to do business. Now, will we make a deal? There's a very good chance we're going to make a deal, but we're going to make it on our term.
Okay. Trump told Cuomo that his administration was not doing anything to hurt entitlements and would not hurt Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. An audience member asked the president what has been his biggest mistake in the first 100 days. Trump said that was the toughest question since he doesn't believe he has made any mistake.
Lastly, Trump addressed the possibility of Stephen A. Smith, who was one of those presenters, running for president.
Do you have any advice for Stephen A. If he launches the run?
No, Stephen A. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. I love watching him. He's got great entertainment skills, which is very important. People watch him. You know, a lot of these Democrats I watch, I say they have no chance. I've been pretty good at picking people and picking candidates, and I will tell you, I'd love to see him run.
All right, there you go.
He could run against Trump for that third term that we keep
the
hearing.
Unconstitutional third term that he keeps toying with.
I thought it was a very good event. Cuomo and O'Reilly are pros at this, and Stephen A. Smith did a great job too. You know, the top line for me is Trump is sticking by the trade policy that he has outlined. Thinks that that was a very reasonable question from O'Reilly. That, you know, what if Democrats capitalize on the fact that this has harmed the economy in the short term, and Trump is convinced of his ability to persuade voters that it is in their long-term best interests to adopt this policy, so here we are.
I did think that his comments on that topic were interesting because he talks about the tariff question as being, the exact quote was, a little complicated, and he has to explain it. And I think even critics of Trump on the right or on the libertarian wing on the tariff policy would argue that, in fact, it is complicated and he doesn't understand it terribly well, which is why he has pitched himself into the difficulty that he has done. We see his poll numbers eroding pretty badly. You were talking yesterday, I think, about the new DDHQ numbers. And even yesterday at a separate event, Trump was talking about trade imbalances as if those are subsidies.
Yeah, I was actually going to
build
up bring up this exact issue. He sometimes describes the trade deficit in ways that that all this value is leaving our country because we're trading, and so the things we're buying, whoever we're buying them from is then receiving our money, and then it's just a one-way transfer of our money to them. But if you think about, like, our money has no value if you cannot use it to barter for things. Like, I could have a stockpile of gold, but if no one is willing to give me anything in exchange for the gold is worthless. Right. So I have a trade imbalance with Panera Bread Company because they give me bread and I give them money. Right. So after that exchange, I have less money, but I have traded my money for something I need and want more than just the literal pieces of paper or whatever it is.
Delicious sandwiches in the case of Panera Bread.
So that's how it works. So you'd have to, and he sometimes does not seem to manifest an understanding of that, and that concerns me, because that's a pretty fundamental.
Right.
If you think that's bad, then you would think all trade is bad.
Right,
But then that
exactly.
wouldn't even make sense, because that would be internal to the country. Unless
Yeah.
you're saying I should bake all my own bread, assemble all my own furniture,
Right.
eat my bread with utensils I myself have carved from the it doesn't.
From a
That's
tree
the-
trunk.
And,
Yeah.
and frankly, the only other category of people I can find, or I recall, who think that is truly the way we should live are like the most far left sociologists, sort of Marxist, like being alienated from your own labor is a bad thing, and assembly line production is bad, and we should all be producing our own thing. Like that's Karl Marx and then some. So I don't know why it should not be the policy of the Republican president. And again, to emphasize this, I do not like hearing Marxist talking points coming out of the White House. Yesterday at the cabinet meeting that they had, he talked about the limiting of options. We're going to have fewer Chinese goods. So do you really need $30? You're only going to have 2.
Yeah.
I'm like, but. Okay, now that's like a Bernie Sanders thing that I have long criticized, where it's like, why do you need so many choices of things? I thought we were going to get rid of the World Economic Forum's whole, like, you will own nothing and like it. No, this is like limiting choices, giving people less of stuff is bad and is a political loser.
Right, and that thing about the dolls was getting very close to almost like a state control of the economy, right? Or the idea that you're going to ration things, or you don't need that. So,
it was said that you were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them.
Exactly.
To quote a movie that our viewers are, I'm sure, happy to see in theaters this week.
So it doesn't sound like you will be growing your own vegetables or keeping your own chickens over in Soave Towers?
No, and again, I would support your freedom to be able to do that. There are regulations preventing you from having your own chickens in all sorts of cities that I think are bad. My brother in Grand Rapids, Michigan, he has a chicken coop. He has some chickens that produces eggs. If you enjoy doing it, that's fine.
Sure.
My overall philosophy is people can enjoy making different choices for themselves. Because everyone is different, and that's fine.
Right.
And government policy, to the extent it is necessary, should facilitate you living your life to its own fulfillment. I don't know how to run Niall's life. I would be very bad at it. Niall should run Niall's life. Robby should run Robby's life, and so on and so forth. So and I've often criticized, again, I associate this with the very furthest left governance saying, we're deciding what's best for you. Here is a limited range of choices we think should be okay. So I don't like to see Trump adopt that framing.
We could have a whole other discussion about the libertarian view of whether we really get to control our own lives entirely, or whether we are the product of forces of history.
You're saying
we're
being puppet mastered by sinister
No,
global forces? Is that what you're saying, Niall?
I'm not saying that. We do not want to go down that road. But I do not think, as libertarians tend to, that individuals live in isolation from the larger social or historical forces that shape them.
Well, President Trump says he can, but won't bring back a man that the government has acknowledged was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Is he defying the Supreme Court? We will argue about it. Stay tuned.